Being home alone is supposed to be a childhood dream, but for these 4 people, it became a waking nightmare. I'm Chris, and my story starts when I was 13. My parents were away overnight, leaving me with my older brother, Kyle. Kyle was 19, and that gave him a brilliant, terrible idea. He told me he was going out for a bit with his friends. He made me promise not to tell. At first, I was thrilled. The entire house to myself? It felt like ultimate freedom. I decided to watch a horror film in the living room, which, looking back, was my first mistake. The movie itself wasn't the scariest part. It was the house. Every groan of the floorboards, every whisper of the wind against the glass, even the hum of the refrigerator, it all felt amplified, menacing. My own imagination was turning my home into a haunted house. I couldn't finish the movie. I sprinted upstairs to my bedroom like something was chasing me in the dark hallway. To calm down, I fired up my old console and dove into a video game. For a couple of hours, I was lost in a digital world, the fear forgotten. When I finally quit, exhausted, I climbed into bed. Not long after, I heard the distinct sound of the front door shutting downstairs. Relief washed over me. Kyle was back, but something felt wrong immediately. Instead of his usual heavy tread up the stairs, there were only these faint, shuffling noises from the main floor. Strange little thumps, a creeping dread replaced my relief. I got up and peered out my window. His car wasn't in the driveway. My stomach dropped. I had no cell phone back then. I was trapped. My bedroom door had a flimsy lock, useless against any real force. I scanned the room. The only hiding spot was my tiny crawl space closet. I squeezed inside and pulled the door shut, sitting in the dusty dark, praying it was just Kyle being weird. Then I heard my bedroom door open. Someone was inside. I held my breath. I could hear them moving around, their weight making the old floor protest. I heard a low, scraping sound, like something being pulled across the carpet. My heart was a frantic drum in my ears. What were they looking for? Who were they? Trapped in a closet, I listened as a stranger rummaged through my childhood sanctuary. It felt like an eternity before the footsteps finally retreated. I stayed hidden, frozen, for what must have been 2 more hours. Then I heard Kyle's voice, angry, calling my name from downstairs. When he burst into my room, he was furious, demanding to know why his own room was torn apart. That's when we both knew. We searched the house together, dressers were dumped out, the living room TV and our game consoles were gone. We'd been robbed. Kyle called the police. My parents returned to chaos around dawn. My dad was livid with Kyle for leaving me, and we later learned for forgetting to lock the door. Kyle had to work for months to pay back what was stolen. I was just left with the memory of hiding in that dark closet, listening to a thief walk through my life. This next story isn't mine. It's from a woman named Sarah, who grew up living with her grandparents. Their neighbor, an older man named Robert, was a family fixture. He'd help her grandpa with chores, watch games with her uncle, and was always around. One evening, Sarah's grandma went out. Her grandpa left for a short drive to pick her up, asking if Sarah, then about 5, wanted to come. She said no, her cartoons were on. He reminded her sternly, "Do not open the door for anyone." He left. The house fell silent. A few minutes later, a knock came. She ran to the door and asked who it was. It was Robert. He said he'd just seen her grandpa leave. She said no one was home. He replied that he knew. He'd been on the phone with her uncle, who was out. Then he asked to come in. In her child's logic, he wasn't a stranger. She unlocked the door. He stepped inside, reeking of alcohol. He put his heavy hands on her small shoulders. She tried to wiggle free, to go back to the TV, but his grip tightened. His voice turned low and angry, saying things that scared her so deeply the words themselves are now a blur. Only the terror remains. He dragged her to the kitchen. He pulled a large kitchen knife from a block. He pressed the point against her stomach and asked if she wanted to be cut. When she cried, he told her to be quiet or he'd slice her tongue. He dragged the blunt edge of the blade across her neck. Then, headlights swept across the kitchen window. Her grandparents were back. As her grandma walked in, her smile died. She screamed for her husband. Robert clamped a hand over Sarah's mouth. Her grandpa charged in, a storm of rage, and tackled Robert away from her. Her grandma swept Sarah into a tight hug, shielding her eyes. There was a violent struggle, then the sound of the front door slamming. Years later, after her grandpa passed, Sarah talked about that night with her grandma, praising her grandpa's heroism. Her grandma grew quiet. She mentioned, almost offhand, that her grandpa had gone out hunting that same night, which was unusual. They never called the police. Robert was never seen again. Sarah is left to wonder what exactly her hunter grandpa did after shoving that monster out into the dark. Our third story comes from Jake, who was 15 during a spring break. His parents were out of town. He got a call from a casual friend, Leo, asking a huge favor. Leo needed to drop off their mutual friend, Eli, for the night. Jake refused. He wanted to relax alone. Leo became desperate, his voice cracking. He finally offered Jake his vape pen as a bribe. Jake, being a dumb teenager, agreed. He knew Eli had been acting off lately, laughing in silent classrooms, talking about conspiracies, but he wasn't prepared. When they arrived, Jake took his hit and Leo left, but not before pulling Eli aside, tears in his eyes, begging him, "Don't do that thing, man." Eli nodded blankly. The second the door closed, Eli's first question was, "Are all the doors locked?" A chill shot down Jake's spine. He showed Eli the locked back door. Eli just stood there in the hallway, then slowly raised his arm in a stiff, unnatural salute, a wide, toothy grin splitting his face. Jake forced a nervous laugh. In the kitchen, as Jake got water, he saw Eli's hand drift toward the knife drawer. Jake lunged and slammed it shut. Eli just stared and chuckled, a hollow, empty sound. The air in the room turned to ice. Jake knew with absolute certainty he was in danger. He suggested they go to the neighborhood park. He let Eli out first, then locked the door behind him and called his brother, terrified. His brother and friends arrived in minutes. Outside, Eli was rambling about coaches being in a secret society. They got him a ride home. Later, a shaken Leo confessed, during the car ride, Eli had been reading a manifesto, talking about needing to kill himself or someone else. He'd been self-medicating with drugs, triggering a severe psychotic break. Jake had been minutes away from a catastrophic, unthinkable situation. The final story is from Mark. He was 10, home alone on a bright afternoon while his mom shopped. He was shooting hoops in the driveway. He stopped for a breath and glanced up at his house. In his sister's upstairs window, a dark figure stood behind the glass, watching him. His blood ran cold. He dropped the ball and ran inside, shouting, "Who's here?" From upstairs, a voice answered. It called his name. "Mark, come up here." It wasn't his mom, dad, or sister. It was a voice trying to sound normal and failing. He didn't move toward the stairs. He snatched the kitchen phone, bolted back outside, and called his mom, sobbing. She called the police. They searched the entire house. Nothing. His mom was skeptical, thinking he'd imagined it. That night, Mark awoke in the pitch black. His eyes adjusted, and he saw it. A tall, dark shape standing silently in the corner of his room. He screamed. The figure moved with shocking speed, yanked his window open, and jumped out onto the roof below. His parents rushed in. His dad gave chase but found nothing. The intruder had been in the house for hours. He knew Mark's name. He'd been watching from the window, and he'd been standing in the dark, watching Mark sleep. That's the most horrifying part, not knowing what he intended or what he did while he was waiting in the shadows. These aren't just scary stories. They're reminders that vulnerability has a taste, and it's the taste of your own home turning against you. If these true accounts gripped you, please like this video. It supports Winds of Thought in bringing you more real, chilling narratives. Stay safe, and maybe double-check those locks tonight.